The Fitchburg Board of Public Works for Monday, January 13th. Meeting held in the Francis Huntley Cooper Council Chambers. Attending tonight, myself, Alder Wheeler, Michael Granetsky, and Dave Wilborn. Kim has indicated is off with excuse, but she plans to attend our next meeting. At this point, I would like to turn the meeting over to Jim to chair.
Got it. So agenda item number 2, public appearances for non-agenda items. No one in chambers? Do we have anyone on Zoom?
No, sir.
Okay, item number 3. A motion to, can I get a motion to approve minutes of December 5th, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Minutes are approved. Item number 4, review of utility P-card purchases. Review of utility P-card purchases. Well, that's in there twice. I don't know why. Any questions on those?
I have one, Jim.
Okay, Dave.
It was a check 602-5744-340 for $12,077 to I didn't write it down, Shree something for the well number 11 rewiring. Bill, was that a rewind of the pump? Is that what that was?
Yes, it was.
Okay, all right, that's what it would cost. Okay, thank you. That's the only one I had.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing on agenda item number 5, report from the department. Bill?
Good evening, and thank you for having me tonight at my very last meeting of Public Works. Unless you guys want to have me here as a guest speaker from time to time.
You know where we keep the registration forms, right?
Our new director, Tim Volker, will be starting on January 23rd. Which is coincidentally the same day as the proposed meeting date for Board of Public Works. So Tim will be starting on the 23rd. He's from Florida. He's got about 18 years of experience in public works down in that area, and he's going to brave the cold and come back here and try Wisconsin once again. He's a UW graduate, so he was here, he's familiar with the weather, but he's going to, he'll adjust. He said he's ready to learn. We also have another engineer that's starting on January 17th, one of our project engineers. His name is Ross Kaler, and he comes from a local consulting company here in town, in Madison. So he'll be helping us out with our project engineering projects coming up. We have several positions still open. The assistant director, which we will go out and advertise for. We had a couple of candidates who submitted applications for the project engineer that were overqualified. We felt that they would be good candidates for the assistant position. So we're going to get those folks in here for interviews within the next few weeks. The transportation and the engineering tech positions are still open, but other than that, we've got everything else filled except for a maintenance worker position that was added to our organization this past budget that we'll be advertising for early coming up this spring. Other than that, we've got a lot of projects in the hopper right now. The Cyene Road project that's started construction this fall will be on hold until spring when the ground thaws out again. Then we'll be finishing up the area that's south of Nannyberry Park to Aurora and also Lacey Road. That'll be completed in 2023. We have about 30% plan reviews that is ongoing for Cyene Road north of Nannyberry Park up through Clayton, and then also the roundabout the intersection improvements at Clayton or at McCoy and Cyene. That's proposed to be a traffic signal up there, so they're both at about 30% reviews right now. Those will be reconstructed in 2024. We are going forward with a few utility projects this spring coming up. One of them will be a water main reconstruction on McKee Road between Osmondson and I forget how far down it goes. It goes down the hill. I think it goes to I'm not sure. But there'll be some work on, some water main work on McKee Road to the east of Osmondson, coming down the hill. And also some work with some resurfacing projects with water main replacement that is going on with that. A few sanitary road projects that we got coming up on McCoy Road, or the McCoy Road Interceptor. We're going to be extending that along McCoy Road, or along MM. And then on the well 12, we're kicking off a design for that one as well. That's going into Stoner Prairie. Terravessa and Highfield Reserve, both are going to have new phases of development happening this year, so we're reviewing plans for those projects. And then we started, we'll be kicking off a design RFP for Fitchburg Road between Lacey Road and Nesbitt Road. So there'll be some public meetings and things like that for the construction or design of that. That project is supposed to happen in 2024 or 25.
Any questions for Bill?
How are things going with Lacey Road?
Lacey Road, thanks for bringing that one. We're almost at 100% plans. We've got the final review coming out on Friday. We'll be putting it out for bid on the street, I think, January 24th, and then looking to award the bids on March 8th.
Any other questions for Bill?
I had one, Jim. Bill, what drove the water main project you mentioned on McKee, down to Osmondson? Is it aging, or what's the driver?
We've got some corrosive soils in the area that have been affecting the integrity of the main. We've had multiple breaks along that section, and it is one of our main feeds through the area, so we need to get in there and fix that before we have to do something that's more drastic as far as supplying water to our residents.
One other question, Bill, have you been contacted? The unfortunate fatality we had, the television stations, I thought, kind of did a hit job on the city of Fitchburg, but have you been contacted for comment about our facilities or anything in our city by the media?
Yeah, I talked to several TV stations and the Wisconsin State Journal. I'm not sure how they took what I had for information and spun it, but I did talk to them and inform them of all of the improvements that we are making along Cyene Road in the upcoming construction with regard to pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, traffic calming, et cetera, connectivity. So I did give them a lot of information that was positive that we are moving forward with, but yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you, Bill. Next, agenda item 6A alpha. Can I get a motion updating Fitchburg ordinances to allow appeal of impact fees by amending section 24-18 of Fitchburg General Code of Ordinances, ordinance 2022-0-43. Updating Fitchburg ordinances to allow appeal of impact fees by amending section 24-18 of Fitchburg General Code of Ordinances.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
A second discussion. You going to explain this one, Bill?
Sure. We noted that this section of the ordinance did not have an appeal process, so making this consistent with all other areas of the ordinances that have fees with appeals, we are including this language in there to amend it.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 6B Baker. Can I get a motion approving the 2023 water impact fee rate resolution R-232-22, approving the 2023 water impact fee rate?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
The second. We have someone who wants to speak on this. David Haight of 5855 Woods Edge Road. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Yep. So one of the key challenges that any organization faces when it grows is the institution of processes that allow it to meet the goals, objectives, and duties that it has. And I think Alder Wheeler talked a little bit about this in the council meeting where the budget was approved, when he talked about getting on the same page and addressing the same kind of issues. And with that, I just want to point out what the city ordinances say. So the water utility is, in fact, a public utility regulated by the PSC, and it's a distinct entity from the Department of Public Works. And the ordinance that created the Board of Public Works said that, or excuse me, the utility, in order to promote the public health, safety, general welfare of the community, the utility is designed to promote reasonably adequate water services and set forth equitable revenue systems as to derive the maximum public benefit. So the water and sewer utility is not managed by the council or the director of public works. Rather, it's managed by the Board of Public Works. It says the utility shall be supervised by a utility superintendent under the direction of the director of public works. Although the BPW is not technically a public utility commission under state statute, the ordinance which creates the utility gives all the same powers and duties to the Board of Public Works as a public utility commission. And it has identical powers as described in that state statute. In that statute, it specifies the council has delegated its powers and duties over the water utility to the BPW, which acts as its proxy and is responsible for the entire management of and shall supervise the operation of the utility. Therefore, the BPW, excuse me, it's hard to speak through this. The BPW, when acting in its role as a governing body of the water and sewer utility, takes off its hat as the BPW and puts on the water utility governing board hat, and it has a completely different set of powers and duties. And the ordinance states to take charge, this is the BPW, to take charge and manage Fitchburg Utility District 1 and undertake all the responsibilities described in the state statute for public utility commissions. And it specifically says, here are the things that you're supposed to be doing. Supervise and control the buildings and grounds, waterworks and district, ensure the collection, transmission, treatment of potable water, wastewater, make provision for enforcement of district rules and regulations, take care of contracts, manage and control the affairs of the district, including hire and termination of district employees, installation of new facilities, project planning, etc., and all related activities as may be necessary for the promotion of the public health, comfort, convenience, or public welfare of the district. You're to place the director of public works in direct control of district operations and place under his or her supervision all work led by contract, etc., etc. And undertake all powers and responsibilities as laid out in Chapter 40, which means that you have the responsibility to make sure that the fee is, in fact, in full compliance with the regulations set forth by the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin. And what I'm asking, and what is reserved to the council, is only the power to approve or disapprove your budget. It cannot make the budget for you, and it can only pass ordinances that affect your operation. It cannot pass resolutions that mess with the governing of the water utility. And so, given those duties, all I'm asking tonight is whether you feel that you've been provided with enough information to ensure that you would be carrying out your duties to be the public steward of the water utility going forward. So as you consider whether or not you should approve this, you have to consider that particular context.
Okay, let me interrupt. Your time is up. I gave you a little bit more time
Sorry, sir.
as you heard the alarm go off. So thank you for your comments. Any discussion? Dave?
It was very, I enjoyed, I'm not a statute guy, but I enjoyed that very well stated. And I'd say, Dave Wilborn and I, been on this board 30 years. And, we, like all of you, we take this responsibility seriously, to oversee this, the water department. And, I am in full agreement. I accept that responsibility, as Alder Wheeler knows, anything we do, the council still has to, anything we, still has to approve. There is still some oversight, but he is correct, on the budgeting, that they can't, council can't necessarily set that budget for us. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Get my, moving on to agenda. Yes.
I think we missed a presentation from Mr. Maxwell.
Oh, sorry about that. Mr. Maxwell, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I do have a presentation prepared on the impact fees, just to run through a few of the basics and then get into the specifics of this particular impact fee, if that's all right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I will share my screen here. Are you seeing my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm with the firm Ruckert & Milke, and we were hired to update the water impact fees. So I thought it would be helpful, since it's been a little while since the city has looked at impact fees, to cover some of the fundamentals and then a few of the specifics going into the report that ultimately provided the recommendation for the fees. I won't cover everything from the report, but just hit some of the highlights. Couple things about impact fees to know. First, the primary purpose for impact fees is to provide funding for projects designed to serve new growth. It's to enact the principle growth pays for growth. That being said, there are a number of restrictions in the state statutes on what impact fees can and can't cover. They can't cover operating costs. They cannot pay for vehicles. They can't cover what's called existing deficiencies, which is basically anything that is to serve existing residents, and that can include replacements or repairs. Those cannot be covered. What's referred to as excess capacity cannot be covered. In other words, infrastructure designed to meet the needs beyond the growth period. They also can't be used for growth outside of the municipality or to come into compliance with current law, for instance, Americans with Disabilities Act. And who you can charge for this, basically anyone who benefits from it. Some of the requirements for charging impact fees that have to go into the study include defining the service area, which in the case of Fitchburg is pretty simple. It's the whole city. And then you also have to come up with a forecast to determine how much growth needs to be served. And then also come up with a list of existing facilities. Inventory those out so you know what you have currently to serve both the current population and future population. Service standards is another important feature that needs to be included. This basically determines how much additional infrastructure will be needed to serve future growth. Future projects, you also need a list of those along with their related costs. And then there does need to be an evaluation of the impact on housing affordability for the fees as well. And one change to the statute since Fitchburg approved their fees in 2010 is that at the time that folks pay this fee, an explanation needs to be provided to them for what is this fee paying for? This current study can serve as that explanation now. And then in terms of the process, the study needs to be made available to the public, and a Class 1 notice is issued to the public. At least 20 days later, a public hearing is held, which I believe is scheduled for tomorrow for Fitchburg. And then after that, the governing body can approve the new fees following the public hearing. I just want to step back and show you a very simple example of how the fees are calculated. I mean, ultimately, what it boils down to is sort of a division problem. On the top, it's the portion of the project costs that are attributable to new growth. And then on the bottom, it's divided by whatever that new growth is for that forecast period. So for instance, really simple example, let's say we're talking about parks fee. Let's say you have $1 million in projects that are eligible for impact fees, and you have 1,000 new homes in the forecast. You would take the $1 million divided by 1,000 homes. That would mean you'd charge each home $1,000 to cover the cost of that new growth. Now, there's a lot of analysis that goes into coming up with each of these numbers, but that's ultimately what it boils down to, is a division problem. There are some ongoing requirements after a study is passed and the fees are adopted. For the municipality to continue to collect them, they do need to report out each year. Staff has to report out on what was collected and what was spent for each department that does collect impact fees. And then there needs to be separate accounting of those impact fees that are collected. The third bullet point is a really important one. The money has to be refunded if it's not spent within a certain amount of time. For most areas, that's 8 years. That includes water. Sewer is an exception for some reason. They get 10 years to spend that. Also, the statutes change that the refunds have to go to the person who originally paid the fee, not the current property owner. And that's a logistical challenge that's best avoided if possible. You also need an appeals process in order for folks to object if they feel like they've been treated unfairly as part of the process. The last bullet point, that's not a requirement, but a recommendation I have for you is that they be updated roughly every 5 years. That's to adjust for changing forecasts, changing infrastructure needs, as well as newer cost estimates. If any of those things change, then the fees themselves really should change. Otherwise, you could end up in a situation where you're either over collecting or under collecting. And if that happens for too long, that can produce problems. If you over collect, you need to issue refunds. And then if you under collect for too long, you end up with a deficit or a shortfall for those projects. So it's good to update them periodically. Just a couple other points. Impact fees sometimes won't pay for an entire project. There's a variety of reasons for that, but bottom line, you typically will need to find a way to pay for at least part of some of the projects in some other way. With a water utility, that's probably going to be rates. And to that end, it's helpful to have a plan to figure out how you're going to pay for the rest. One last point I want to make about impact fees before getting more into the specifics of Fitchburg is that when you take out debt for a project, that helps spread out the cost recovery beyond 8 years, so that 8-year limitation isn't as pressing or as concerning. Are there any questions on the general points about impact fees before we get into specifics on Fitchburg?
Ed, I just had one.
Yes, please.
I'm sorry, and please indulge me.
Sure.
You know, the Public Service Commission has to, they have approval of our water rates, or essentially approve the setting of our water rates. Do they have the same type of approval over the, our what we select for an impact fee?
No, they do not.
Okay. And so a second kind of point of clarification, impact fee. So if a subdivision is built, the developer puts in he puts in the water main in that subdivision, say to feed the homes. The impact fee would be, we need additional capacity for our wells to supply that water. And so that's what the fee would be. It would not be for him to install the main within his subdivision unless we asked him to oversize it. Is that my somewhat in the ballpark there?
Yes. The specifics of Fitchburg, there are some dollars allocated for mains, but if a developer were to build it and donate it to the city, then they would be exempt from that particular portion of the fee because that's already covered. But yes, in other cases, it's to pay for upsizing of mains or additional capacity at wells or storage capacity with your towers as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Any other questions before we pivot and get more into Fitchburg?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So when we turn to the specifics of Fitchburg, there's quite a bit of growth in the recent sales and pumpage history of water, close to 3% per year. And so that was what was used to forecast out for the next 20 years, was that average rate of growth in consumption and pumpage, which with compounding brings total water use growth for an average day of over 70% increase. And this kind of demand imposes significant needs on the system, and the city's planned water projects are to meet those needs. And so let's take a look at those specific projects. On the left are the projects, in the middle is the cost. The column to the right of the cost, the new growth share, is how much is eligible for impact fees. And then to the right of that, that's simply the cost times the new growth share. And the new growth share percentage is based on the standard applied to the particular project in question. For water mains, the standard is simply being able to receive water. And since these mains are needed to provide new customers with service, the full cost is eligible. For the wells, the standard for supply capacity is based on what's called firm capacity, which refers to an area's total capacity with the largest supply source out of service. And so here we're looking at about 2/3 of it is eligible for impact fees. For the towers, the standard for storage is based on a few different classes of storage. There's storage to meet peak demands, for fire protection, and storage for operations. And here it's about 3/4 of these costs are eligible. And so you can see the total at the bottom is 13.76 million is eligible for impact fees. However, we do need to deduct a couple things from that total before we calculate the actual impact fee. So you can see that 13.76 million here at the top of the slide. We do need to deduct what we collect or what the city will collect from special assessments so as to not double collect or double recover those costs. And then also we want to deduct what's the existing water impact fee fund balance. In other words, dollars collected but not yet spent, which is the 2.5 million. After those are deducted, we have 10.9 million to be recovered in impact fees. From there, we take that total and we divide it by the number of RECs, or residential equivalent connections. And that gives us our impact fee, newly calculated impact fee of $908. So the current fee is $1,374. And this represents a significant decrease, 34% for residential customers in particular. Quick note though, that is not the full story. That's because what's being recommended is also an update to the definition of residential equivalent unit. So high level demand has changed for residential customers. It's significantly down since the last study was composed in 2009. So that means the residential portion of those costs for impact fees should decline. However, non-residential, it's a little bit more complicated. the way their fee is calculated is a little different. So for a residential customer, it doesn't matter the size of the home and so forth. They're all defined as one residential equivalent unit. For a non-residential customer, the way their fee, what they ultimately total pay, is based on this formula you're seeing here in this bullet point. There's an estimated demand based on what the usage of the property is going to be, divided by the average residential demand times the fee per rec. Now, as I mentioned before on the previous slide, in 2009, average residential demand was 225 gallons per day. Right now, based on an average of the last several years, it's down to 130 gallons per day, a significant decline. So this has an impact on how much gets recovered from non-residential customers. So two things are changing up in this formula in the non-residential demand: the average residential demand and the fee per rec. And it's a little easier to see with an example, so I'll show you one right now. So let's say you have a business that's anticipated to use 1,000 gallons per day. With the current formula, we take 1,000 divided by 225, which is our current definition for average residential demand. And then we multiply it by the current fee per rec, which is $1,378, your current fee right now. We come up with a total of $1,600. Now with the proposed formula, we're taking 1,000 divided by the new residential average that reflects new residential demand or more recent demand of 130. And then we multiply it by the 908, which is the new proposed fee. And we get a total of almost $7,000 here. So the net change here is an increase of 14% for non-residential customers, driven primarily by this significant decrease in residential demand. So it's just shifting cost to where cost is being caused more accurately, is the big takeaway. Without this change, residential customers would end up subsidizing non-residential customers.
Do we not have data on the non-residential customers that we need to use a formula?
So each one is different and can be very dramatically different. That's why this number, this estimated demand number, changes based on the non-residential customer in question. It's a huge range. Any other questions on this? Okay, so ultimately that leads into the recommendation of adopting the proposed impact fee of $908. And so my recommendation is that after the public hearing tomorrow, that the city votes and approves this. You do have to wait until after the public hearing to fully approve these. But I want to pause here and see if there are any questions on impact fees in general or the specifics to Fitchburg.
Ed,
Yes.
is it somewhat of a generic or the way the formula is calculated? Would Middleton's be calculated somewhat similar to ours? Please excuse my ignorance in asking the question.
Oh, no, not at all. So there are two main ways to calculate water impact fees that I've seen and provided for other communities. This is one of those two main ways. Another is based on equivalent meter size. So there's like a conversion table based on the meter size, and larger meters pay more, essentially. And there are trade-offs between each one.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Was the analysis done to know what that comparison would be?
It was not done in this case, no.
Ed, will you be giving this presentation at Finance or Council tomorrow?
I will be there for the public hearing, and I can give this full presentation again before or after the hearing.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions?
Excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So moving on to item 6C, C as in Charles. Can I get a motion authorizing purchase of 1.5 inch and 2 inch water meters, resolution R-240-22?
So moved.
Authorizing purchase of 1.5 and 2 inch water meters.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second that motion.
Any discussion? Any reason to explain this one, Bill, or does it look kind of straightforward?
Year two of our large water meter purchases, so we're just asking for purchase approval. Over $25,000 needs the council approval.
Okay.
Bill, so these ones we're replacing, they would be due, you're replacing them on the interval where they would be due to be taken out of service to be tested. Is that correct? Instead of testing, we're going to replace them with a meter that's more accurate at low flow rates and more reliable. Would it
Yep.
somewhat close?
That's very accurate, Dave. Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 6D, accepting subdivision improvements for Phase 1A in the plat of Highland Reserve, Resolution R-238-22, accepting subdivision improvements of Phase 1A in the plat of Highfield Reserve.
I so move we approve resolution R-238-22.
I would move we defer this. I don't believe it's, there's a number of issues. I believe we should defer it. I'm sorry, Dave. Sorry to jump in.
Oh, thanks for jumping in. I had that as a note, and I forgot to look at it. So could I get a motion to postpone item 6D?
Dave, is this requested by us? Was this by?
This is Bill. Bill has requested this because there's a number of things not done to our satisfaction or not completed yet.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion, we set aside resolution number R-238-22.
Get a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion passes. Item 6E, accepting subdivision improvements for Phase 3 in the plat of Crescent Crossing, Resolution R-239-22. Accepting subdivision improvements for Phase 3 in the plat of Crescent Crossing.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Second.
You want to explain this one, Bill?
Yeah, the plat of Crescent Crossing Phase 3 has been completed. The subdivider has provided all the documents and met all our punch list requirements for acceptance, and staff is recommending acceptance of this plat area for going forward for public maintenance.
So this is obviously the loop that kind of connects Wildcat Drive through that Lista or through the duplex area.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, it's closest to Lacey Road.
Yep.
In that section there.
Okay.
It's the horseshoe.
The
Horseshoe at the bottom.
And this does include then, is Outlot 4 the multi-use path? Is that what that's, or is, I'm trying to think of where that multi-use path lines up on this.
Correct. The path goes through Outlot 4.
Okay. And that's city's responsibility for maintenance and snow removal?
Yes.
Okay. Was there any fencing or anything that's going to be considered as part of this?
Sorry, what was the question?
Any fencing that's going to be going along Lacey Road that needs to be addressed as part of this?
No.
Okay.
No, there's not.
And then final question, kind of towards the left side of the page here, it looks like it kind of triangles off. Is this is that done to handle capacity for the roundabout that would be going in there at some point?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Item 6F, purchase 2023 Toro Groundsmaster 5910 mower. Resolution R-226-22, purchase of 2023 Toro Groundsmaster 5910 mower. Bill, you want to explain this one?
Sure. We have an existing mower that was purchased in 2013 for mowing our grounds, such as parks and large areas. And with this wide area mower, it's a very efficient, it's a very well, it stands up to the test of time for the mower that we have. We're looking to purchase a similar or the same model for 2022 or 23, I should say, when it becomes available. And we would like to keep the existing mower because it is in pretty good shape yet, instead of trading it in. We have a lot more parks that we're maintaining, and as staff becomes available to temporary staff or seasonal staff, we can allow them to use that mower to help offset the costs of our grounds mowing. So we're asking for approval to purchase the mower in 2023.
I'll move approval of resolution R-0323. Or I'm seeing, 022622.
Okay. Any other questions?
I had one. This has to be, we normally put this on a trailer and take it out to the park. It's not something we're driving on the road. Bill?
Yeah, typically we don't. There's a few areas that are pretty close to where we mow that we would, take it down a path to get to those locations. But typically we would trailer it.
Okay. Is this gasoline or diesel? I'm assuming it's gasoline.
I couldn't tell you.
Okay, all right. Never.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 6G, Resolution R-03-23, approving the termination of the estimate with MG&E to underground power lines and the termination of development agreement with Green Tech Land Company, Tech Lands LLC, and FTC Holdings.
I'll move approval of R-03-23.
Get a second. Anyone want a second? I'll second. Okay, second by Wilburn. Dave or Bill? I'm sorry.
Sure. A couple of years ago, we had come forward to the council to request some authorization to expend funds for undergrounding the electric on Lacey Road between Sain Road and the roundabout there. We also came forward with a request to contract with the Wisconsin Southern Railroad for the crossing improvements there. These two projects were to be funded out of TID 4, which is a closed TID now. So we allocated those costs for those two projects, got the contracts signed to be able to execute them when we went forward with it, and so that we could use the funds. What we found out now is that due to the costs of the construction increases over the past few years, that original estimate is no longer a valid estimate. The timeline for being able to underground the power lines also is one that we don't feel that we could get executed in the time frame that we need to expend the funds in. So staff and administration have requested that we terminate the agreement with MG&E for the undergrounding at this time, so that we can close the TID and allocate those funds to the project cost, or to the general project fund that would be expended as a result of the closure.
Go ahead, Mike.
So power lines would still be above ground?
Yes.
Dave?
So Bill, am I following this right? You know, TID was gonna pay for this. And now we're terminating it and saying we're going to use the general fund to pay for it?
No, we're not going to be using the TID for the MG&E costs. We're not going to bury the power lines.
Okay, all right. I'm fine with that.
Oh, just a question so I'm understanding this. So what is the advantage of doing it this way? And I see Misty is coming up.
Yeah, I probably totally threw this one under the bus. Didn't know you were back there.
Sitting in the corner, getting stuff done. Thank you. So a couple of things with this one. So first on that MG&E undergrounding piece. So it is an eligible TID 4 expense. We want to close that TID. So at this point, because of the increased costs and just the timing of it, staff is recommending that we end that project at this point. And then in the relatively near future, assuming TID 14 and the Hartung property continues to move forward as we expect, we'll be reconstructing Lacey Road to the west, and we'll relook at doing this project as a part of that, and then paid for out of that TID instead.
Okay.
The other
Thank you.
piece of this resolution, if I may, there is an outstanding developer agreement in TID 4. That one's not our traditional pay-as-you-go model, so there's not a normal termination piece. So the other part of this resolution is an official termination of that development agreement. Public Works has confirmed all of the requirements under that development have been met, so we just need to officially terminate it so it's off the books. And both of those things have to be done in order to close TID 4.
If we do the burying of the power lines at a later point in time, are we going to have to do a ton of rework?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye, motion passes. Item 7, announcements. Next Board of Public Works meeting is Monday, January 23rd, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. Item 8, can I get a motion for adjournment? Okay.
I'll move adjournment.
Dave, Wilburn beat you to it, Dave, so I guess you'll
All
say.
right.
Before we adjourn, I'd just like to say thank you to Bill for putting up with us for the last how many ever years.
Yes. 4 more days and a wake up.
Sleep in on Friday, will you?
All right, it's been a privilege, and I enjoyed the service that I've given to Fitchburg and the board. Hope to see you in the future, and looking forward to seeing all those neat projects that get done without me.
Well, have fun.
We'll call Lacey Road the Bill Freeway. Go from there.
We look forward to you having a great enjoyment in your life, Bill, too. Well deserved. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your service to the city.
All right, meeting is
Easy job.
adjourned.